Hi friends, this is Sarah. Welcome to Crafting and Relaxing. Thank you so very much for joining me for my process video for Smash That Small Paper Pad. This is real high level, and I'm showing you that during a night of watching TV, I took the pad of the 48 sheets and I chopped it up. I chopped up every 6x6 in it and I matted the cut aparts. Then I went in my craft room, and after I had assembled some of those, and I started stamping on them, "You're the best." And I used my stamp platform that I don't normally use. And then I started laying out those cut aparts. I matted absolutely everything in black and used black for my layers. I highly recommend that for a large batch where you're trying to save time and you want to be able to mix and match. Then I'm back in the TV room. I started these on like Wednesday night and finished them Sunday. And I'm showing you, I have all these matted, and these are the scraps I have left at this point. Just gives you an idea of how this evening ended up. And I tore apart that pad, but in the end only used a couple. After I made Smash That Small Paper Pad, I did make a couple more cards. I was short. Then one day during my lunch break, so this is maybe Thursday or Friday at this point, I had all of these and my ATG, and I said, okay, it's go time. I don't like to make cards that are exactly the same. And because there were 4 sheets of each piece of paper, there were 4 card fronts that were exactly the same, assuming that I stamped "You're the best" in the bottom corner. And there were 6 cut aparts. So what I did was I laid them out so that the same cut apart didn't appear twice on the yellow paper. Does that make sense? Then I did the same thing with the orange paper. I didn't really have a science about how I laid them out in my assembly line. Sometimes I prepped 2 at a time, sometimes 4, but mostly what I was trying to do was get the 4 pieces of patterned paper all together the same. And obviously I've sped this up, but also I am cruising. It's my lunch break and I've got to get these going. My goal was to not use my whole weekend on these cards because I've done that. It's really stressful. Then I'm trying to address them right before they have to get out. So this time I was like, I'm going to start early and I'm going to get a lot done during the week. And I think I did a good job. I tried to have some interest on the fronts and on the inside. On the inside, I stamped "thanks" or "thank you," and I'll show you some of that. Then I did put a scrap of patterned paper on the inside of each one. I left the backs completely blank. And usually I put my Crafting and Relaxing logo, but this batch of cards, it wasn't about my logo or any of that, and I had to make the card bases, so I just left that off. I skipped that step, and partly because of some government employee rules in the state of Oregon, I just thought, I'm going to leave that off. But I'll show you that backfired on me. I maybe should have put a star stamp, which I thought about doing, or something on the back, because I'll show you what happened. So here, I'm just going through, same idea. Not overthinking it a lot. I have 6 choices. I'm using 4 of them that I like with the papers and just laying them out. It's been 5 minutes and 40 seconds so far. I'm cruising. That's what I'm trying to show you. Now, I have 2 of these stamp platforms, which worked out pretty well for me during this process. I used both. And I keep a jar of, more than one jar at this point, of scraps. These are strips. They're not shapes that I could really die cut from, except for maybe sentiments. I do go to the jar for that. And so for these cards, I went through my jars and I took out the white, a little bit of cream, and I think I used a little bit of gray, maybe once. I didn't love it. I have a little bit of trouble with my stamp platform at the very top. So if you're wondering why don't I put it in the upper left where the 290 degrees meet, I just have troubles with it there. So I'm just putting paper in, getting 2 images on it if I can, and I'm using that Yankee candle thing that my friend Noni made me. I used it all the way throughout this process and loved it because I could just hit everything once. Maybe once I restamped something, but I made 67 cards, I think, in my Smash That Small Paper Pad video, then I made a couple more. When you're making that many cards, you just have to go. You have to accept the fact that you might have a pet hair in something at some point. It might not be the most perfectly centered item. You just have to live with it, because otherwise you'll never get them done. And again, these are a fun surprise for someone, but I don't want it to suck up a month. So here I got out some craft because I thought, well, those go with the pencils, and there were a couple other bits of wood here and there. I'm just using my scraps, but also trying to make it so that every single card doesn't look exactly the same. If you throw away strips of paper like this, you should probably stop doing it. You can put them in a jar, you can put them in a Ziploc bag. They are great to sit and watch TV if you have dies of small words, tiny flowers, tiny hearts. You can die cut while you watch TV. You can use them for projects like this, whatever. I have a lot of black in my stash now, so maybe we'll be doing some gold or white embossing in the future, because that jar has quite a bit. Okay, so at this point, my lunch break, 16 minutes and 42 seconds. And the reason I put that in is because I want to give you an idea of what you can get done. Those card bases are all layered up and stuck together with their cut aparts on them. I stamped out all of those images. I'm just going to leave them like that to dry and go back to work. And then here we have another section where I've gone crazy stamping. This is probably after work in the evening, and I'm just showing you I used the thanks and the thanks so much out of that set, and used my little candle topper, and I'm using my VersaFine black ink pad. I like it, it works, it matches. So I did all of those, and you'll notice I didn't cut the card bases before I stamped. I was going for speed, then you don't have to fiddle with them as much. I just pop it in, rotate it, and stamp it again. And look at all of them. When I'm making a giant batch of cards, I do things in the completely different order. I didn't even have card bases. Those crafting and relaxing ones, it was, oh, I remember, it was really early in the morning. I got confused and started making those. Okay, so here we go. I've cut them all apart and they're ready to go. And I'm going to score them with my scoring board right there. And so just showing you what I'm doing. So in this process, I folded them and glued the front right on them. There's no right or wrong. You might wonder, why didn't I score them all and then glue them all? Well, maybe it's a little better for my hands. Maybe I get a little less bored. Maybe I just love to be able to put a completed card in that box. I don't know. And there's no perfect science for how much adhesive you use, but I don't think these are going to be cards they keep for decades, so I'm not too worried about it. And the card fronts aren't especially heavy on these. Some of them later on are. I put some clunky embellishments. One of them had like a balsa wood desk on it. Think about, if you need to make a big batch of cards, think about your sequence and how you want to put them together and where you want to end up. Like, I like to put them in the box as I go, because otherwise I run out of space. They fall down, they're sliding all over. And you can see that one has a spot of ink on it. That's okay. Just cover that part up. I really tried to not throw away my oopses along the way. You can count things out perfectly and make that many if you want. I never do that because I'm going to mess some up. I'm probably going to lose some in a pile and need to. So I don't spend a lot of time counting in the beginning. Like when I was making my card bases and stamping them out, I was just grabbing a bunch of paper, stamping as much as I had the patience or time for, or dry space, and then moving on. When I didn't really start counting a lot until the very end, and then I put dividers in the box by tens. That just gives you an idea. I knew I needed a mountain of them, and I had an idea that I had 48 solid pieces of like that yellow patterned paper or orange right there. Well, it was 48 minus the cut apart, so I think it ended up being 40. So I had an idea that I needed 70 cards. So I was working on over half of them, but I had a ways to go. gives you an idea of how I did it. I did not stop and say, okay, I need 70 of these and 70 of these and count them out, because I would spend forever counting and then recounting, and then I'd have to count again when I messed them up. I've learned from doing this, just make. Because one year I'd count and there'd be 40, and then there were 42, and then there were 47, and then there were 53. Just make. When you need a mountain, it's not the counting that matters. Just putting them together as quick as I can. You'll notice at this point, I haven't put any enamel dots or embellishments on. And that's because I'm trying to keep things flat. I really thought about the sequence of events that I did things in. Many times I finished my card front all the way and then put it on my base. I wanted them flat. I also, in the back of my mind, knew that if I sent them exactly the way they are, it would be fine. So I was going for sheer quantity at this point, and then I could add embellishments later. And that's how I did it. I'll show you a little bit of that later. At the very end, I just started laying things out right before I made my Smash That Small Paper Pad video, and then put the embellishments on them. I had to remind myself not to put any in envelopes, because I do put them all in envelopes and seal them up. And I used stickers on quite a few of them. I used the leftover stickers that you'll see that I didn't use. Okay, so we've used all of those up. Now I'm to a different part of the cut aparts. This was a vertical strip, a 6-inch vertical strip in the pad that I didn't know what to do with, because another way that I simplified was I made all of my cards horizontal, every single one of them, so that I didn't have to worry about fit or layout or if I had the right shape card bases. I just made one shape. So I cut down those verticals and matted them, and I just grabbed a couple words and I took out the word teacher that was in there, because these are office staff and I wanted them to feel special. Now I'm going through a pile of embellishments that Noni had. My friend Noni buys at garage sales, in lots, random stuff. She had a whole bag of school type stuff that she wasn't interested in, and she gave me months ago, and I set aside knowing eventually I would make cards. And a lot of this stuff has been used, stuck together. Somebody pulled apart the layers just like I'm gonna do, and it left adhesive everywhere. So I'm just figuring out, what do we have here and what can I use, and trying to get the trash out of my way and getting an idea of what stickers we would use. And I already did stick down that stool. Forgot to turn the camera on, it happens. But this just gives you an idea of how I used the large cut aparts, and then I went to smaller cut aparts and what else I used with them. I used stickers because I had them. I did not do any die cutting in these cards. Another thing, it was for speed, right? If you have amazing school die cuts and you wanted to do something like this, fine. Spend a night or two watching TV and die cutting. I didn't have like scissors and apples, and I didn't have any of that kind of stuff. Those playground stickers were a little young for this group, so I skipped those. But just use what you have. I was in this for speed and also to get them done on time. I think some years I've been so late that some people might not even get their cards before they leave for the summer. So I was just bound and determined to get these done in a timely manner. And sometimes as card makers, that's not how we roll. These embellishments, a bunch of them were 3 layers with foam mount between them. These are not real high quality embellishments, most of them. They don't have foam throughout, so they get wobbly looking, and 3 was too much. So I peeled them down to 2 for stability and then glued them on. I took the foam mount off the back, so that made them a little less floppy. When you have different shape stickers and you're fiddling, you're going to fiddle with your layout a little bit, but then you just have to commit and say, okay, I'm going to do this. These cards, you'll notice, I made these with my 2-inch strips that I had left over after I made my solid card bases, and then I matted with black and left a space between them. And that gives, and the space varies based on measurements, I was experimenting, that gives interest to the card, and also I didn't want to have to deal with that seam. When I do individual cards, lots of times I will patch the card front and then put washi tape over that seam or a strip of cardstock. I didn't have washi tape that matched. I didn't want to spend a lot of time looking, and I didn't want a strip of cardstock across the middle of my card, because then I would have had to, where it says learn pencil bell and I put it over it, or desk student bus, I would have had to put a bit of cardstock on each end to level that up so it wasn't wobbly. So again, I was just thinking of speed and the end product. I mean, it looks pretty much the same, and non-card makers aren't going to be like, oh, she really should have put a layer there. And I kind of like this. I think this is I don't know if you call it a sketch or something that I will use a lot in the future, because it really used up my 2-inch strips and it was fast. And if you're a card maker and you like to make card fronts with your printed paper, you end up with 2-inch strips a lot. Okay, on this card, I don't know, I just got creative and tried to put stuff in there. When I have big sticker sheets and I'm done with them, I cut them down a lot just so I can focus on what I do have. I liked the calculator keys. I don't know if they really looked like that the way I put them, but you get the idea. And I'm just trying to finish cards. That's all I'm trying to do, as quick as I can. I'm not thinking about how many stickers do I have and how long will they last. None of that, because I know that if I get in a jam, I could die cut some flowers, or stamp out another sentiment, or I don't know, put a dog on the front, something. I mean, you can always patch it up. It doesn't have to be themed matchy. These ended up being, because there were so many stickers and so much stuff, but I went for speed. I didn't stop to worry about if I had enough or how many stickers I was using on each one. I just went, okay, this card looks good, next. Quick as I could. And sometimes I experimented with the layouts and had a little fun, but I was just trying to move. Those backpacks are a little weird looking, but I think school people know what they are. I very often worry about the scale or logic of items, like a piece of paper, an eraser bigger than a backpack, or a crayon bigger than a backpack. I didn't worry about that on these. They were fun, they were school cards, and I just had to go. I realized partway through it said like 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade. Grade was a fun word for these cards, and it was blue, so I added that on there. I had adhesive probably from the different layers on that backpack, so I used my adhesive eraser to pull that off. That item is in my Amazon store. If you don't have one of those, it's like a dream come true. I don't know how I survived for years without one. And it's not very expensive. Okay, here, another example. I put books on a piece of paper. The scale is off. I had fun with it. Normally, that's not my style. And those giant pencils compared to the bus. And I like how I laid that down in the Learn Pencil Bell embellishment touch the piece of paper. I liked it that way. That's not how I glued it down in the end, but I think that happens a lot as card makers. If you were doing one card at a time and you wanted to keep track, snap a photo and then assemble it the way your photo was. I film with my phone, so I don't really have that option if I'm filming, and in this case, I was just going. I don't think it's bad, I just liked it actually crooked and touching the piece of paper. And I just put a glue dot on the back of the apple. Okay, now I'm getting ready to do the scraps on the inside. I got down to where there were little bits left. This is what happened because I left the back of my card base blank. Okay, so it just got out of hand. I had some stuff in the box and I grabbed it. There were oopses along the way. I chopped that down and glued both of those pieces onto a card base. So I just wanted you to see, had I put a star on the back, I would have realized something was wrong on that one because I was doing it twice. Then I went through my miscellaneous bling. I found a whole bunch of those yellow stars that my friend Noni had given me. I used puffy foam things from this Pebbles flag. I just found things that matched color-wise. I have mostly jewel tones and pastels, so that was tricky. Orange nail head things, they kind of worked. More stars and enamel dots. I probably cleaned out all my black, white, green, and odd blue enamel dots that I had, they just didn't seem like bling kind of rhinestone type cards, you know? But I just went through and used a ton, and I added a little something to every one of those cards. So I hope this video gave you some ideas for making big batches of cards. It's different than making one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.